Welcome to My Spoonie Sisters, featuring stories from special guests dedicated to empowering those with chronic illness. Our goal? To connect people and provide the support and tools they need to live a better life. For those with chronic illness, our energy levels just fade faster. We must be more purposeful with the spoons allotted to us. So grab your coffee or tea, sister, and tune in as My Spoonie Sisters share stories of living with chronic illness. Hi, my Spoonie Sisters. It's your host, Gracefully Jen, and today I am completely honored. I get to sit down here with Michelle and talk about her beautiful rare daughter, and so I'm excited to welcome you. Hi, Michelle. How are you?
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm really excited and also honored to be here and talk a little bit about Hailey and her rare diagnosis and how we have kind of navigated something that we weren't expecting.
Okay, so I kind of just want to dive in. And, you told me that Hailey is almost 4 years old and she was born at the beginning of COVID. So can you kind of walk us through all of the beginnings of all this?
Well, Hailey, since I would say the beginning of my pregnancy, has been kind of a mystery and just throwing surprise after surprise. She was actually originally a twin, and we lost the other twin early on in the pregnancy. So the pregnancy was a little bit different than with my son, just in the fact that, it just a lot of unexpected things happened. And then my pregnancy was pretty typical, genetic testing was done and everything was pretty much, on track to be an okay delivery and a standard C-section. And nope, in true Hailey fashion, she was like 5.5 weeks early. I guess she knew COVID was coming and the world was about to shut down. So she's like, I'm good. Here I am. So she was early. And she spent a little bit of time in the NICU, which now in hindsight makes kind of sense, because she did have this rare diagnosis. So, it was definitely, she threw us through some loopholes, but, we did everything we could to kind of figure out her rare diagnosis. And we are, fortunate in the fact that we got a diagnosis so early on, because I know there's a ton of people out there who may still be wondering about their child. And I just do feel very lucky and fortunate that we were able to get some answers early on.
Okay. So it sounds like right from the beginning, like a lot of the rare mamas that I've talked to, you just knew something wasn't quite right. Where did you go from there? Did you take her to the pediatrician and try to ask questions?
She was whisked away pretty quickly, and I saw her for maybe 2.5 seconds. But in that short time, I just kind of knew something needed to be sought. I was like, this isn't right. I just feel it in my bones. Even the C-section was not easy. The doctors were struggling a little bit to get her out, which also, again, in hindsight makes sense because she had such low tone or hypotonia that they couldn't extract her. So I think just the delivery that should have been kind of just straightforward and easy, that kind of threw me through a loop. And so early on, I was pretty much pressing every nurse, every doctor, my family, my husband, something isn't adding up. And then I became a doctor and I was all over Google trying to figure it out. And I did say early on in the NICU, I said, can we do more testing? I asked the NICU doctor and, I just pressed for answers, and we did do the genetic testing, but as most people know, it's still a pretty general panel. So it's the things that you would expect to look for. So when they came back and said, your child doesn't have any of these diagnoses, I was like, great, but now what? So that was just a whole big journey. And, we were trying to figure out who do I go to next? And it was really just trying to figure out what specialists to see. So we brought her to as many specialists as we could. Again, because of COVID, we just couldn't bring her in person physically. So that was also really difficult to explain to doctors. So it was a lot.
Well, yeah, especially because a lot of things we need the doctor to look at our child, right? And you want them to be able to look and see what is going on and what are these symptoms that you're seeing. And when you can't do that, how in the world can you get them to understand what you're trying to say and that you're not just a paranoid mom? So what was the first specialist?
So the first specialist, well, I had talked to the pediatrician several times and I was like, listen, she's not doing this. She's not meeting this milestone. And I remember at one point I diagnosed her. Well, I diagnosed her many times, but at one point I said, you know what, I think she has this. And I asked the doctor, and we did a virtual appointment, and he kind of brushed me off a little bit and was like, I don't think so. And I was like, okay, I still think there's something. And then at one point my husband was like, you know what, I'm seeing what you're seeing. And we thought maybe she was visually impaired. We weren't sure if she wasn't tracking, and she wasn't really making eye contact. And she was about like 2.5, 3 months old. And I just remember with my son, who was neurotypical, like he was doing these things. So at that point we had seen an ophthalmologist, and I called. I was like, I'm not sure if my daughter can see. And he got her in like the next day, because I just lost it on the phone. And he got her in, and he said, listen, everything structurally looks great, but I think you need to see a geneticist. And, you know, he kind of mentioned some of the things about her that no mother wants to hear. It's really hard to hear those kinds of things, but I think I needed to hear it and be validated in that sense. So that kind of became our path. Then we saw a geneticist, and so on and so forth. But that geneticist actually misdiagnosed her. So it was definitely a lot of hurdles.
Okay, so what was the misdiagnosis?
He didn't really look at her extremities. He didn't really undress her. He kind of just looked at her and said, I think she has achondroplasia, which is a form of dwarfism, which I really didn't think was too far off, because at one point I said, oh, maybe she has that. Maybe that's, you know, something I found on the internet. But in my gut, I said, I don't think so, because she was still missing different milestones that didn't line up with that specific diagnosis. So that was a little bittersweet, because I was like, okay, like I feel validated. But then when we got the answer that she didn't have it, I was like, now what? So it was really, really difficult navigating that and feeling kind of isolated. Like, you know, I didn't know what to do next.
Okay, so the misdiagnosis, where did you go next from there?
A neurologist who did, you know, all the testing she could do, and everything kind of checked out. She wasn't really sure, like, if there was anything else going on, but she's like, you know what, let's just do some more genetic testing. And she sent that out, and I waited, and I finally called the office, and I was like, there must be something. Like, did you get anything? And they said, give us a few days, and called me back. And I am obsessed and so grateful for this doctor, because she did have a diagnosis, but she didn't want to call me in until she knew more about it, because it was this ultra rare disease that, you know, less than 200 people globally had. So she waited until she could find everything and put in a packet and call me in and sit me down. And she told me, this is your daughter's diagnosis. She has Jordan syndrome. There's a Facebook family out there. There's this whole community, you know, this is what I know. This is what I found out. And so she sat me down. And again, we are so beyond lucky to have gotten that, you know, diagnosis, because again, it was so rare. The fact that she found it was just like the stars aligned for us, because we could still be sitting here waiting and wondering, but we were very lucky in that moment.
That is incredible. And the fact that she took the time to make sure that she got it right, and to give you all the proper information too, that's how people should be. That's the kind of work they should do. That's what they should strive to be, right? Okay, right. So now you have the diagnosis. Right. Yeah, exactly. A lot of people don't get that. So now you have it. Where did they send you next?
I first joined this Facebook group because I was like, what do I do? You know, I need like some kind of support, because it's the most isolating feeling, thinking like, I don't have I don't know what to do. Where do we turn? And I went to bed. My husband and I, you know, stayed up all night talking, and, you know, we're like, we're going to figure this out. We're going to get through this. We're going to get her whatever she needs. And when I woke up after joining this Facebook group and just like introducing myself, I woke up to messages from probably everyone in the community with pictures of their children, like telling me they're here for me. And it was just like such an amazing feeling, knowing that like I was alone, but I really wasn't. And I wasn't alone, you know, like I had this new global family. And then we were connected with a geneticist, Dr. Chung, who is like, I call her the Beyonce of like the genetics world. And she is just amazing. And she brought us into the office and we met her, and just, she gave us so much hope and kindness. And just directed us, like, what should we do next? And we were, again, really lucky that we live in New Jersey and this doctor was in New York City and we had access and we could just, drive in and go see her. So that was like really, again, like we felt very fortunate in that sense.
That's actually really, really good. So, okay, so you have her pretty nearby. I mean, it wasn't her, right? I'm not butchering that?
Yes.
Yes. Oh my goodness. Sorry, yeah. I warned you about my brain. Okay, so as you're talking to her and finding out more information from not only her, but also the community, is this something that you had to both be a carrier to pass down to your child?
Actually, we're both tested just because they do a lot of research and we both aren't. And it is a random mutation that can occur in utero, but it also can be passed down. And we are finding as our population grows and we're finding, more individuals diagnosed with Jordan syndrome, or the scientific name is PPP2R5D for Hailey, specifically her variant. We're finding that there are parents that have passed it down. So they didn't know they had it. And it's just, science to me is so crazy and amazing, but we also learned a lot and I learned a lot. I'm not a medical person. I don't love science. But I feel like I am pretty well versed in it now because you just kind of have to be, and to understand the complexities of, your child.
Okay. So now she's a little bit older and you've met this wonderful community. I'm hoping that means you've gotten answers. What does her care plan look like?
We're so lucky because she is in the most amazing place. Her school is beyond anything I could have ever asked for or hoped for. She is receiving like a wonderful curriculum and she gets all her therapies every single day, whether it's OT or PT or speech or feeding, and they're working on different communication devices and applications. And like, not only that, but the people that look after my child every day, like, love her. It's just like when we talk, you can tell it's so apparent that like they're trying to teach her and they're trying to like help her in every way. But like, there's this level of love that they truly care for her. So I know when she's not with me, like she is just as loved as if she were home. So, we have this like wonderful plan in place and they help us get all her adaptive equipment and help us like with insurance, which I could talk for days about, but they're just so helpful. And I just feel like we have so many different things in place for her that help her be the most successful Hailey that she can be.
What does her future look like?
Really hopeful that she is going to do all the things, but there's a lot of question marks. I think that, we don't know. I hate using the word nonverbal because, she's verbal in her own way. She, has voice inflections that tell us things and she uses body gestures and we know what she needs and what she wants. But I do see that it's in her that she really has so much to say to me and she's starting to babble. And I know she just wants to like tell me off or tell me to go away. And I cannot wait for that day. But, I do foresee that she is going to be more mobile. Like I know she has a lot of motivation. So I don't know. I see a lot of beautiful possibilities for her. And I think not only are we pushing her, but I see her pushing herself. So I think big things are in her future.
That's incredible. Okay. So what do her symptoms look like? What does a day in the life of Hailey look like?
Hailey, among the other children with Jordan syndrome, a big symptom I would say is hypotonia or her low muscle tone. So, physical things for her are more difficult than, your average person. So she does struggle with, sitting. We're still trying to get her to sit independently. And there was a period where she was, and then she kind of was like, I like rolling around on the floor. So we are trying to navigate that a little bit for her, but we do have a lot of adaptive equipment that helps her and her therapies. But she is sassy and she is spicy and, she gets where she needs to go without, walking or, typical crawling. So, she gets to the places she needs to go. She does have seizure disorder. So we are controlling that with medication and, she sees a neurologist every few months and, we just keep track of that. But, her day doesn't look like a typical kid, but we make her life as typical as possible and expose her to everything. And she has an older brother who, they kind of like fight over toys sometimes. And I'm like, I love this. And, like she can't speak words yet, but she tells him when like she's annoyed and when she wants to watch her show. And, she's really coming into her own, and she's turning 4 in like 4 days. And to me, it's amazing how far she's come. So her day is different than what we expected, but it's beautiful in its own right. So yeah, it's filled with love, at home, and then she goes to school, and we're just, we know that she's thriving there.
Calling all spoonies. As a host of a chronic illness podcast, nothing lights up my day more than hearing from you, our incredible listeners. Whether it's a topic close to your heart that you want us to uncover, or you are keen to show your own journey as a guest on our show, your voice matters. Living with chronic illness can often feel isolating, but through the power of podcasting, we can come together as a community to uplift, educate, and inspire one another. Your stories, insights, and questions drive the conversations we have and the topics we explore. So if there's something on your mind, a story that you are just itching to share, or a guest you'd love to hear from, don't hesitate to reach out. Your voice is not only welcomed here, but celebrated. Let's continue to amplify the voices of those living with chronic illnesses and create a space where everyone feels heard, supported, and empowered. Together, we are stronger. That's wonderful. What does her care plan look like in a day? Is she able to eat on her own? Does she have medications that she has to take? What does that look like?
She does take seizure medications in the morning and at night. So we usually give that to her with her bottle. She's not eating solids. She does eat purees, and she's mostly formula fed, a pea protein. But it's amazing that she doesn't really chew foods, but I will give her half her pill in the morning with her bottle, and she swallows it. I'm like, you are amazing, because even I, as an adult, like I struggle with taking pills, and so it's just amazing the things that she can do. But they're working on feeding therapy at school, and we're working on that as well. But we struggle too, because all these allergies just popped up. So now we're like, okay, we need to navigate that. It's another hurdle, but we'll figure it out and we'll get it. But we'll get there.
So are the allergies something that typically comes with this, or is this a whole separate thing?
Separate thing that we're just like,
oh, yay.
Navigate that one. I'm like, great, thanks. But she was eating like yogurt when she was an infant. Like that was her first puree food. And now all of a sudden she's allergic. So we're like, all right, well, we're just going to find alternatives and we'll figure it out as it comes. But yeah, I'm not sure if that's like a typically like Jordan syndrome thing or just a Hailey thing.
So I'm going to ask you a question that's more about yourself, not Hailey, because you are a spoonie in your own right. You've got all this energy that's going to taking care of your daughter and doing the best that you can for her. So I consider you a spoonie too. So what would be in your spoonie toolkit to take care of yourself in a day?
I mean, I can totally relate to, like, sometimes I feel like my spoons are depleted and I'm like, I need to re-energize. And I do feel like, with Hailey, she does lose, hours of sleep in the night, and then that affects us. So, some people don't agree with us, but sometimes we will put her iPad in her room and play her favorite show, Coco Melon, whether she's sleeping or not, or just watching it. Like for us, like we need the sleep, because if we aren't well rested or taking care of ourselves, how are we expected to take care of our child? So something as simple as just, like survival mode, like we need to sleep. That's something that we do. And I'm really lucky that my husband is really helpful. And sometimes I'm like, I need to go to bed at like 7:30, like once the kids are to bed, or can you put them to bed? And, we just work as a team in that way, because sometimes I'm done by 7:30. I teach and then I come home and I take care of my kids. And some days I'm like, I'm done. And, it's great to have such a wonderful team.
Absolutely. And you write a blog. You want to tell us a little bit about that?
That's kind of been my outlet or my therapy since really receiving Hailey's diagnosis. Full disclosure, I'm proud of it. I'm a big advocate for therapy. I started therapy pretty much when Hailey was 2 months old, when I was kind of navigating the isolation. And, I love therapy, and I think that it was so helpful and beneficial for me. And my therapist at the time said, maybe you should write down your feelings. And I did. And then one of my very good friends who used to be a teacher, she actually left the profession and she now has this amazing website business. And she created a website for me. And she's like, just blog, just do it. And that was kind of the beginning of it for me. And that's when I really started to feel like I had a handle on my emotions and, a diagnosis. And it just really helped me channel everything. And I think that it was helpful for me to relate to other parents that may be, receiving the same diagnosis. And like, I understand how they feel and they understand how I feel. So it's just been truly a wonderful tool for me and so many others.
Absolutely. And honestly, how can you care for others if you're not caring for yourself first? I almost said that backwards. Don't mind me. But, it's important. You cannot fill anyone else from your empty cup. You can't. It's impossible.
Right. Yeah.
So I'm glad that you found some outlets like that. What kind of tips and encouragement would you give to someone out there that is at the beginning stages of the same journey that you've been going through?
Just honestly, like embracing every emotion. It's okay. Like, I'm 4 years into it and there are days where I'm like, I got this, like we can figure it out. And there's days where I'm just a mess and I'm a ball of emotions and I'm teary and, everything just kind of hits me wrong. And sometimes I see a commercial with like a mother and a daughter, like doing things. And I'm like, why isn't that me? But I also know that I have a different story and it's a beautiful story and it may look different. It may be different. So I try to look at those moments and remember that like everyone has their own journey and just embrace it. And I feel like being able to, I don't want to say accept it because there's days where I don't, but just accept the fact that like, this is your story and, no one else is writing it for you and, you'll figure it out and you'll tell it the way you want.
I love it. I love it. How do you maintain your sunny disposition?
Some days I do, some days I don't. You can just ask my husband. But, I think that I just look at life and it's precious and it's short. And, if you spend your days and every single day just kind of worrying or just thinking too much about things, then you're just not going to have the time to, be in the present and enjoy the small things.
Yeah. And, quite honestly, it's okay not to be sunshine and rainbows every day because our lives are never sunshine and rainbows all the time. They're just not. And you have a beautiful child that has an incredible life with an incredible mother. So why not love it? Who or what lifts your spirits on those really hard days?
I feel like I look at my son who, he's 6 and he has his own struggles too. He doesn't get to play with his sibling in the same way, but he finds different ways. And I see that he's so empathetic and like that makes me so proud. And then I look at Hailey, who it doesn't come easy for her, but that doesn't stop her. And I think that like someone once said to me, it's not Hailey who is like struggling emotionally. It's me, and she's happy and she knows happiness only. And so I think that's a big perspective shift and change for me. And, they're the ones who kind of just push me forward. And I know I have to do it and get through it and figure it out for them.
That's beautiful. Sorry, I was muted. I was about to just talk to you and I was still muted, but that's absolutely beautiful. What resources would you recommend to someone that's just at the beginning stages?
We found my community online. I guess if, you can find a community for, if it's you or your child for their specific, diagnosis or disability. But if not, there's like so many resources, like if you just go online, you'll find your people. I met Extra Lucky Moms, who is another, organization that I really connected with. And for me, they were really local in New York and New Jersey, actually just New Jersey. So, I was able to find people and connect with them and then actually meet them in real life. So, you just find your people and then you connect. And, I think just looking, it's out there if you look hard enough.
Yeah. And there's other podcasts like Once Upon a Gene. She's actually, oh my gosh, she's up in Seattle. She's not far from me. I live down by Portland. She's got an incredible resource. for all kinds of people. I love it.
And I think actually is one of the first people I connected with, like way back. So,
oh, that's great.
Yeah,
That's great.
Yeah, so she's a great resource as well.
Well, and I think the other one you mentioned to me is Find Your Rare. That's another good one.
We go way back too. I feel like when I was just like looking, and I remember searching the keyword rare, I was like, am I going to find like rare? Because it's so rare. And then I found Christine and I was like, oh my gosh, like she just was so down to earth and amazing. So, and now we connected, and it's just like, we get life in a different way. So it's just so wonderful, all the resources and tools out there.
Yeah, exactly. And, I've mentioned this in a couple other podcast episodes, but a lot of people don't realize that I was actually the aunt of a rare child. She was terminal and she passed away at the age of 3. And so that's part of why I reach out to people like you, because I want to hear your journey too. And I get you, even though my journey is so different, I've seen the other side as well. And I know you have an incredible story to share, and I want people to hear it.
Thank you for sharing that, because we all have our journeys and our experiences, and it's important that, other people know about them and, can understand that it's not always so easy for everybody.
Absolutely. We all have a journey that is sometimes seen and sometimes very unseen as well. Where is the best place for people to find and follow you?
I'm Mama Bear for Rare. I'm very active on Instagram. I love Instagram. I feel like that was kind of where my community really started. And I'm pretty much on every social platform. And my blog is mamabearforrare.com. So, sometimes they can find a new blog or just like other resources that I love, inclusive brands that I really love, that I know that they promote inclusivity. So just stuff like that. And I just feel like it's just a place for people to visit so they feel a little bit less alone.
And are there some other podcasts that you've been on that we could also point people to listen to?
Mentioned Once Upon a Gene. I had a little debut on that. I was so appreciative of Effie to include me. Find Your Rare I was also on. So yeah, there's just been like a few I've been on, and I really appreciated just being able to share that, and talk to so many other people. And now I'm on yours, which is amazing. My Spoonie Sisters. So I'm so appreciative that you asked me to join, and, thank you for letting me share my story.
Absolutely. Is there anything that I have not asked you that we need to talk about when it comes to Hailey and your life?
I guess just like for anyone out there who feels like there's nothing out there for you, or you just feel isolated and alone, you're not. You have so many people. My inbox is always open. If you want to call me, you can do that. And I know that I'm just one of the few that, one of the many I misspoke, that you could reach out to. So there's a really beautiful community out there.
Absolutely is. And I'll be sure to get all the links from you to share in the show notes for people. We'll direct them to your blog and the episodes you've been in and all the fun things. Well, thanks for joining. And, well, Spoonie Sisters, until next time, don't forget your spoon. The information, opinions, and recommendations presented in this podcast are for general information only. Consult your own physician for any medical issues that you may be having. The information should not be taken as a replacement for medical, clinical, professional advice, diagnoses, or medical intervention. My Spoonie Sisters and guests will not be held liable for any of the consequences of such action or inaction. Trigger warning. Some episodes may cover sensitive topics including, but not limited to, suicide, abuse, mental illness, and chronic disease. You are advised to refrain from listening if you are likely to be offended or adversely impacted by any of these topics. None of the guests or hosts will be responsible for your use of the information contained therein. Life is not merely to be alive, but to be well. Living a life with a chronic illness is best described with one word: unpredictable. Be Well's products are designed to make the unpredictable easier to deal with. Back when I was getting my infusions, I would have loved to have their adult zip hoodie. They even have one in pink. They also have everything from one-day pill holders to urgency buckets. So remember, they want to make your life a little easier. So be sure to check out Be Well.